If you feel anxious, restless, or mentally tired without knowing exactly why, this video's for you. Not because something is wrong with you, but because your mind has been exposed to something it was never designed to handle constantly. Comparison. Most people believe comparison is a thought problem, something you can reason with or outgrow, but neuroscience tells a different story. Comparison is not just mental, it is neurological. And before we talk about calming the mind, we need to understand what comparison actually does inside the brain. Every time you compare yourself to someone else, your nervous system enters a state of evaluation. Am I behind? Am I enough? Am I doing this right? The brain treats these questions as potential threats, not dramatic threats. Subtle ones. And subtle threats are the most exhausting. Over time, this constant internal evaluation creates a background tension, even when nothing is happening. That's why many people feel anxious at rest. Why silence feels uncomfortable. Why stillness brings restlessness instead of peace. The mind has learned to scan instead of settle. So before we go any further, let's be clear about one thing. You don't need to stop comparing by force, and you don't need to think more positively. You need to interrupt the mechanism. Comparison feeds on attention. It requires you to be externally oriented, focused outward, measuring yourself against images, stories, expectations, and outcomes. The first step is not changing the comparison, it's changing the direction of attention. This is why silence is essential. Not silence as emptiness, but silence as withdrawal. In this step, we are not building anything yet. We are creating space, because a crowded mind cannot stabilize. So let's do something simple together. You don't need to close your eyes. You don't need to relax. Just notice this. Right now, are you doing anything that needs to be evaluated? Are you performing, improving, proving? Or are you simply here, listening? That noticing alone begins to quiet comparison, because comparison cannot survive without a scoreboard. Now, here's something important. Many people confuse silence with absence. But silence is not absence. Silence is presence without commentary. And when commentary fades, the nervous system begins to downshift. The brain receives a signal. Nothing is being demanded right now. This is regulation. You may notice resistance, the urge to check something, to think ahead, to measure progress. That urge is not a flaw. It's habit, and habits soften when they are not fed. So instead of pushing the urge away, just let it be there without responding. No fixing, no judgment. This alone begins to retrain the system. Now here's a critical distinction. Silencing comparison does not mean becoming passive. It means removing unnecessary threat. When comparison quiets, mental energy returns. Not as motivation, but as clarity, and clarity feels calm. If you stay with this practice, even briefly, you may notice something subtle. A sense of space, a slight settling. That's not emptiness. That's the mind, without constant reference to others. This is step one of the inner field process. But silence alone is not enough. Because if you remove comparison without building an internal center, the mind will search for a new mirror, and it will always choose one that creates tension. That's why the next step matters. In step those, we begin building an inner identity, not based on achievement, not based on validation, but based on internal reference. If this video helped you slow down, write silence in the comments. And when you're ready, continue to step 2. Building an inner identity that doesn't depend on comparison. Welcome to the inner field. This is where the mind begins to rest.